The morning sun glinted off the polished windows of Harrington's fine jewelry as Elena Jenkins paused outside, taking a deep breath. She wasn't used to shopping in places this fancy. The street was lined with high-end stores where well-dressed people carried designer shopping bags. Elena straightened her simple beige cardigan and glanced down at her comfortable faded jeans. At 68, she had stopped caring what others thought of her appearance long ago. Her gray hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, and the leather purse hanging from her shoulder had been with her for nearly 15 years. It was worn at the edges but still did its job just fine, like Elena herself. As she pushed open the heavy glass door, a small bell announced her arrival. The sound echoed through the hushed store where crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across display cases filled with glittering treasures. 3 sales associates stood in different corners of the store. They'd all looked up at the sound of the bell, their practiced smiles quickly fading when they saw who had entered. The tallest associate, a woman with a perfect blonde bob and a black designer dress, gave Elena a quick once-over before turning back to straighten an already immaculate display. The middle-aged man in an expensive suit actually checked his watch, as if counting down the minutes until this clearly non-wealthy customer would leave. Only the youngest associate, a girl named Lily who couldn't have been more than 25, made eye contact with Elena. Even then, Eleanor caught the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Eleanor pretended not to notice. She'd faced this kind of judgment her whole career. She moved slowly around the store, her sensible shoes making soft sounds on the marble floor. The jewels sparkled under perfect lighting, diamonds, rubies, and sapphires arranged on velvet cushions like stars in a midnight sky. She stopped at a case containing necklaces. One particular piece caught her eye, a stunning diamond pendant with a blue stone at its center that seemed to glow from within. Eleanor bent closer, her breath fogging the glass slightly. "Can I help you find something in our more affordable collection?" The blonde associate had finally approached, her voice friendly, but her eyes already looking past Eleanor toward the door, hoping for a better customer. "Actually," Eleanor said quietly, "I'd like to see that blue diamond necklace, please." The associate's smile tightened. "That particular piece is from our premium collection. It's priced at $1.2 million. She emphasized the amount as if it were a magical spell that would make Eleanor disappear. "Yes, I can see the price tag. I'd still like to look at it, if you don't mind." The associate hesitated, then turned toward the younger girl. "Lily, would you mind helping this customer? I need to prepare for the Henderson appointment." Lily's shoulders slumped slightly, but she nodded and walked over. The message was clear. The junior staff member got stuck with the window shopper while the senior associates waited for real buyers. "I'll get that out for you," Lily said, her voice professional but lacking enthusiasm as she pulled out a small key from her pocket. As Lily carefully lifted the necklace from its display, Elena watched her hands. The girl handled the piece with genuine care, despite her obvious assumption that this was a waste of time. "It's beautiful craftsmanship," Eleanor said, putting on the reading glasses that hung from a chain around her neck. "May I hold it?" Lily placed the necklace on a velvet pad and slid it across the counter with obvious reluctance. "Of course." Eleanor picked it up with surprising expertise, examining the clasp mechanism and holding the blue diamond to the light. "Excellent color saturation. Is this from the Holloway collection?" Lily blinked, surprised by the technical question. "Yes, it is." "How did you know?" "Oh, I've read about it," Eleanor said with a small smile. "I'd like to see a few more pieces, if you don't mind. Perhaps those emerald earrings and that platinum bracelet in the corner display." Across the store, the manager noticed the growing pile of jewels on Lily's counter and frowned. Other customers in designer clothes were being helped immediately, while this plainly dressed old woman was wasting valuable showcase items. Little did they know that Eleanor Jenkins had come to spend more money than their store had seen in a single day in years, and she was just getting started. What the jewelry store staff couldn't see when they looked at Eleanor was the remarkable life behind her unassuming appearance. Just last month, she had signed papers in a quiet office overlooking San Francisco Bay, selling the tech company she had built from nothing for $340 million. Elena's journey began in 1982 in a single car garage that smelled of motor oil and potential. Back then, computers were bulky machines that filled entire rooms in universities and big corporations. Elena had just lost her job as a data entry clerk when the textile factory closed down. Instead of looking for another job, she used her small savings to buy a personal computer that most people thought was just an expensive toy. Her neighbors thought she was crazy. Her own sister told her to get a real job. But Elena had seen something others missed. The future was in software, not hardware. While everyone focused on building better machines, she focused on what those machines could do. In those early days, she worked 16-hour shifts, sleeping on a worn-out couch in the corner of her garage. She taught herself programming late at night, working by the glow of the computer screen, her fingers flying over the keyboard while the neighborhood slept. The coffee pot was always on, and her only company was an old radio that played soft jazz. Her first breakthrough came when she developed a database system that helped small businesses track inventory. Unlike big, expensive systems, hers was simple enough that anyone could use it. She sold her first copies by going door to door to local shops, demonstrating the software on a computer she lugged around in the trunk of her rusty car. "I just need 10 minutes to show you something that will save you hours every week," she would say to skeptical shop owners. Most closed the door in her face, but the few who gave her those 10 minutes usually ended up buying her software. By 1990, Eleanor had 5 employees working out of a small office above a bakery. The sweet smell of fresh bread would waft up through the floorboards each morning as they wrote code and answered support calls. She hired people others overlooked. A brilliant programmer who dropped out of college to care for his sick mother, a math whiz who struggled with interviews because of her shyness, a former teacher who decided to switch careers at 50. When the internet boom hit in the mid-90s, Eleanor was ready. Her database systems evolved to work online, connecting businesses across the world. Major companies started noticing the small firm that somehow managed to solve problems the tech giants couldn't crack. But even as success came, Eleanor remained the same. She still drove her old car, still packed lunch in Tupperware containers, still wore comfortable shoes and practical clothes. She put every spare dollar back into the business or into the retirement accounts of her employees. When her company grew to over 100 people, she knew everyone's name, their kids' names, and which coffee they preferred in the morning. Last year, when a major tech corporation offered to buy her company, Eleanor's first question wasn't about the money. She asked, "What happens to my people?" Only after getting ironclad guarantees that every employee would be protected did she agree to sell. The $340 million payment had landed in her bank account just 3 weeks ago. For the first time in 40 years, Elena Jenkins had taken a day off. She'd walked along the beach near her modest home, watching the waves and thinking about what to do next. And she had decided, after a lifetime of taking care of business and taking care of others, it was finally time to buy herself something beautiful. Something that sparkled like the dreams that had kept her going through the hard years. Something like the blue diamond necklace that now rested in her hands as the jewelry store staff wondered why this plain-looking older woman was examining their most expensive pieces. Something strange began happening in Harrington's fine jewelry as Eleanor continued examining the expensive pieces. Lily, the young sales associate, noticed it first. The blue diamond necklace was now joined by a pair of emerald earrings and a platinum bracelet set with tiny perfect diamonds on the velvet pad in front of Eleanor. "The craftsmanship on these pieces is extraordinary," Eleanor said, holding the bracelet up to the light. "Who's the designer?" Lily found herself answering with growing interest. There was something about the way this older woman examined the jewelry, not with the excitement of someone unfamiliar with luxury, but with the careful assessment of someone who understood true value. "That's Antonio Beretti's work," Lily explained. "He only creates about 20 pieces a year." Eleanor nodded. "I thought so. His platinum work has a distinctive finish." On the other side of the store, the manager, Mr. Reynolds, was growing concerned. He'd been watching from his office, initially irritated that the plainly dressed woman was taking up his junior associate's time. But now she had 3 pieces worth over $2 million laid out in front of her. He straightened his tie and walked across the polished floor. "Is everything all right over here, Lily?" he asked, his eyes moving from the jewelry to Eleanor and back again. His tone was pleasant but cautious. Yes, Mr. Reynolds, I'm helping this customer with some of our signature pieces. Mr. Reynolds smiled at Eleanor, a professional smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Is there something specific you're looking for today, ma'am? Perhaps I can assist you personally. Eleanor looked up at him, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. Your associate has been very helpful. I'm interested in several pieces, including this necklace. Mr. Reynolds' smile became slightly more genuine. The blue diamond piece is exceptional. One of only 5 with that particular color grade. Eleanor nodded. So I've read. I'd also like to see the ruby collection you keep in the back vault. The store went quiet. The ruby collection was shown only to their most exclusive clients. It wasn't even displayed on the sales floor. Mr. Reynolds hesitated, his professional mask slipping for just a moment. The vault collection. I'm sorry, but those pieces are by appointment only, and they start at $3 million for the smallest piece, Eleanor finished for him. Yes, I'm aware. I've been following your catalog for some time. The 2 senior sales associates who had ignored Eleanor earlier were now watching openly. One of them whispered something to the other. A well-dressed couple who had been receiving attentive service suddenly found themselves momentarily forgotten. Mr. Reynolds studied Eleanor more carefully, noticing for the first time the quiet confidence in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes. Maybe there was more to this woman than her simple clothes suggested. Of course, he said finally. I'd be happy to show you the ruby collection. May I ask what occasion you're shopping for? Eleanor smiled slightly. No special occasion, just something I've been waiting a long time to do. She turned to Lally. Would you mind coming along? You've been very patient with me. Lally looked surprised, then pleased. I'd be happy to, if that's all right with Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds nodded quickly. Of course. Lally, why don't you take our guest to the private viewing room? I'll bring the collection there. As Elena and Lily walked toward the back of the store, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. The other staff members watched with growing curiosity. One of them hurried to take over Lally's forgotten clients. In the private viewing room, with its soft lighting and comfortable chairs, Elena settled in like someone who belonged there. Lily noticed that despite her simple clothes, Eleanor carried herself with dignity. There was something about the way she moved, decisive and unhurried, that commanded respect. When Mr. Reynolds arrived with a black velvet tray holding 5 spectacular ruby pieces, Eleanor didn't gasp or exclaim as most clients did. She simply nodded appreciatively, as if finally seeing old friends she'd been waiting to meet for a very long time. The private viewing room at Harrington's Fine Jewelry felt like another world. Soft classical music played in the background, and the walls were a deep burgundy color that made the jewelry shine even brighter. Elena sat comfortably in a plush chair as Mr. Reynolds arranged the 5 ruby pieces on the velvet-lined table. These rubies come from the mountains of Burma, Mr. Reynolds explained, his voice taking on the smooth, respectful tone he usually reserved for his wealthiest clients. Each stone was selected for its perfect pigeon blood color, the most prized shade in fine rubies. Elena nodded, leaned forward to examine a necklace with a ruby the size of a small grape. The setting is platinum. Yes, with accent diamonds that are all colorless and internally flawless. Lily stood quietly nearby, watching with growing fascination. The door opened, and a server brought in a silver tray with 3 flutes of champagne. This was part of the VIP treatment that Lily had heard about but never witnessed. As Eleanor sipped her champagne and examined each piece, Mr. Reynolds grew increasingly puzzled. This woman clearly knew jewelry. She asked about gem origins, cutting techniques, and design influences that only serious collectors would understand. Yet everything about her appearance suggested modest means. Finally, as Eleanor held a bracelet with 3 large rubies up to the light, she said casually, I recently sold my technology company after 40 years. It's taken some getting used to, having time on my hands. Mr. Reynolds nearly choked on his champagne. Your company? He asked carefully. Jenkins Database Systems, Eleanor replied, still focused on the bracelet. We specialized in security software for financial institutions. Lily's eyes widened. Even she had heard of JDS. It was one of the biggest software acquisitions in the news last month. The sale had been all over the business channels. Mr. Reynolds' face went through a remarkable transformation. His polite smile became genuine, his posture straightened, and a new gleam appeared in his eyes. "Miss Jenkins," he said, with newfound reverence in his voice, "it's an honor to have you in our store. If I'd known that I could afford these pieces," Eleanor finished for him, looking up with a small smile. "That was rather the point of my quiet browsing, Mr. Reynolds. I wanted to see how your staff treated all your customers, not just the obviously wealthy ones." The room fell silent. Lily looked at the floor, her cheeks flushing. "I didn't mean to embarrass anyone," Eleanor continued kindly. "Lily has been wonderful, but I've spent my life being underestimated because of how I look or dress. I had hoped things might be different in a place that values rare and beautiful things." At that moment, a commotion could be heard from the main showroom. The door to the private room opened, and the blonde associate who had dismissed Eleanor earlier peeked in. "Mr. Reynolds," she said breathlessly, "Thomas Chen just arrived with his wife. They're asking about the anniversary collection." Thomas Chen was a famous tech billionaire whose purchases regularly made the society pages. Mr. Reynolds looked torn for a moment, glancing between the door and Eleanor. "Please go ahead," Eleanor said. "Lily can continue assisting me." "Are you sure?" "Thomas Chen can wait," Mr. Reynolds said, the words clearly unfamiliar to him. Eleanor smiled. "Quite sure. Besides, I'm not finished looking. After the rubies, I'd like to see your heritage collection as well." Mr. Reynolds' eyebrows shot up. The heritage collection included some of their most expensive vintage pieces. "Of course, Ms. Jenkins. I'll have them brought in right away." After he left, Lily stood awkwardly, not sure what to say. Eleanor looked at her kindly. "You don't need to be embarrassed," she said. "You were the only one who helped me, even when you thought I couldn't afford anything." "How did you know I thought that?" Lily asked, her face reddening again. "I've been around a long time," Eleanor chuckled. "I know when I'm being humored." She picked up the ruby bracelet again. "Now tell me, what do you think of this piece? Not what you think I want to hear, but your honest opinion." Lily hesitated, then spoke from her heart. "It's beautiful craftsmanship, but I actually think the necklace suits you better. It has a quieter elegance that seems more you." For the first time since entering the store, Eleanor broke into a full, warm smile. "I think you're exactly right." 3 hours had passed since Eleanor first walked into Harrington's fine jewelry. The store had completely transformed around her. What began as an ordinary Tuesday afternoon had turned into one of the most extraordinary days in the store's 30-year history. The private viewing room now looked like a treasure cave. Velvet trays covered the table, each holding spectacular pieces that caught the light in different ways. The blue diamond necklace that had first caught Eleanor's eye sat in the center. Around it were the ruby collection, several pieces from the heritage collection, and a selection of rare-colored diamonds that Mr. Reynolds had brought out without being asked. "I think we've covered most of your finest pieces," Eleanor said, looking at the glittering display before her. She had tried on each item carefully, considering how it felt against her skin, how it caught the light, whether it spoke to her in some personal way. Lily had stayed by her side the entire time, growing more comfortable as the hours passed. The young woman now offered opinions freely when Eleanor asked, and she had a good eye for which pieces complemented Eleanor's coloring and style. Mr. Reynolds had checked in regularly, despite spending most of his time with Thomas Chen and his wife in another viewing room. The famous couple had purchased a single diamond bracelet worth $800,000, normally the kind of sale that would have the entire staff buzzing with excitement. Today, it barely registered as noteworthy. "Have you made your decisions, Miss Jenkins?" Mr. Reynolds asked, entering the room with a hopeful smile. Eleanor nodded. "I have." She pointed to 12 pieces on the table. "I'll take these." The room went silent. Mr. Reynolds blinked rapidly. "All 12?" he asked, his voice slightly higher than normal. "If that's all right," Eleanor said with a small smile. Mr. Reynolds quickly composed himself. Of course. Excellent choices." He began adding up the prices in his head, his expression growing more astonished by the second. Elena had selected the blue diamond necklace at $1.2 million, 3 pieces from the ruby collection totaling $2.1 million, a pink diamond ring worth $850,000, and 7 vintage pieces from the heritage collection adding another $550,000. That comes to approximately $4.7 million, Mr. Reynolds said, trying and failing to keep the amazement out of his voice. That sounds about right, Eleanor agreed calmly, as if discussing the price of groceries. Lily stood frozen, unable to believe what she was witnessing. The largest sale she had ever handled before today was a $12,000 engagement ring. I'll arrange payment through my private bank, Eleanor continued. She pulled a simple phone from her worn purse and made a brief call. They'll be sending the confirmation within a few minutes. Mr. Reynolds nodded, still looking slightly dazed. I'll prepare the paperwork. Would you like us to deliver the pieces to your home? Eleanor thought for a moment. I'll take the blue diamond necklace and the pink ring with me today. The rest can be delivered tomorrow. While Mr. Reynolds hurried off to process the unprecedented sale, Lily helped Eleanor try on the blue diamond necklace one more time. It really does suit you perfectly, she said, fastening the clasp carefully. Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror. The stunning blue stone rested just below her collarbone, catching the light with every breath she took. Against her simple beige cardigan, it looked both out of place and somehow exactly right. 40 years, Eleanor said quietly. I've waited 40 years to buy myself something just because it's beautiful. Lily smiled. It was worth the wait. You deserve it. Eleanor turned to face the young woman. Thank you for your help today, Lily. You've made this experience special. When the paperwork was ready, Eleanor signed each document with the same quiet efficiency she had used to build her company. Her signature was neat and precise, with no unnecessary flourishes. Mr. Reynolds watched with growing respect as she methodically reviewed each page. The store manager had dealt with wealthy clients all his career, but something about Eleanor Jenkins was different. Most people who spent millions on jewelry wanted everyone to know about it. Eleanor seemed interested only in the beauty of the pieces themselves. As she completed the final signature, Eleanor looked up at Mr. Reynolds and Lily. I believe that completes our business for today. Mr. Reynolds nodded, still looking slightly stunned. Yes, Ms. Jenkins. And may I say, it has been our absolute pleasure to serve you. By the next morning, the story of Eleanor Jenkins and her $4.7 million jewelry purchase had spread through the luxury retail world like wildfire. Mr. Reynolds had barely finished his first cup of coffee when his phone began ringing nonstop. Yes, it's true, he confirmed to the fifth caller of the day, the owner of an exclusive watch boutique down the street. Nearly $5 million in a single afternoon, and get this, she was wearing jeans and a cardigan. We almost didn't help her. The admission stung his professional pride, but the story was too good not to share. By noon, every high-end store in the shopping district had heard about the unassuming woman with the tech fortune who had made the largest single purchase in Harrington's history. Eleanor, meanwhile, was enjoying a quiet breakfast in her modest three-bedroom home by the ocean. The blue diamond necklace sat in its case on her kitchen table while she ate toast and read the newspaper. Sometimes she would glance at it and smile, still not quite believing it was hers. Her peaceful morning was interrupted by the ringing of her rarely used landline phone. When she answered, a smooth voice introduced himself as Gregory Thompson, the director of VIP relations for Belmont's, the most exclusive department store in the city. Ms. Jenkins, I understand you recently visited Harrington's Jewelry, he said. We would be honored to offer you a private shopping experience at Belmont's. Our personal shoppers can bring selections to your home, or we can close an entire floor of the store for your convenience. Eleanor politely declined. Before she could hang up, a cell phone began ringing. It was the manager of an Italian fashion house, offering a private showing of their latest collection. By lunchtime, Eleanor had received invitations from 7 luxury retailers, 3 exclusive restaurants, and even a real estate agent specializing in mansions. The attention was exactly what she had avoided her entire life. As the founder of a cybersecurity company, Eleanor had valued privacy above all. Few people knew her face, and she had declined most interviews throughout her career, preferring to let her work speak for itself. Around 2 o'clock, her doorbell rang. A delivery van from Harrington's had arrived with the remaining jewelry she had purchased. The delivery person did a double take when she opened the door, clearly having expected a grander home for someone who had spent millions on jewelry. After carefully checking each piece and signing for the delivery, Eleanor sat in her sunlit living room, surrounded by velvet boxes containing treasures most people only dreamed about. The pink diamond ring sparkled on her finger as she reached for her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Lily, this is Eleanor Jenkins from yesterday," she said when the young sales associate answered. "I was wondering if you might be free for coffee this afternoon. There's a small matter I'd like to discuss with you." 2 hours later, Eleanor sat across from Lily at a quiet corner table in a neighborhood cafe. The younger woman looked nervous, fidgeting with her cup. "You're probably wondering why I asked to meet," Eleanor began. Lily nodded. "Mr. Reynolds mentioned that several other stores have been trying to contact you. If there was anything wrong with your experience yesterday..." Eleanor shook her head. "Nothing was wrong. In fact, I wanted to thank you personally for being the only one who treated me with respect from the beginning." She reached into her simple purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Lily opened it cautiously, then gasped. Inside was a check with her name on it, for an amount that made her eyes widen. I don't understand," she stammered. "It's your commission from yesterday's sale," Eleanor explained. "Mr. Reynolds mentioned that sales associates earn a percentage of their sales. This is yours." Lily stared at the check. It was enough to pay off her student loans completely, with money left over for a down payment on an apartment. "But why? You could have worked with any of the senior associates." Eleanor sipped her tea before answering. "When I started my company, no one would take me seriously. Banks wouldn't lend to me, investors laughed me out of their offices, and stores treated me just like Harrington's did yesterday, until they knew I had money." She reached across the table and gently closed Lily's fingers around the check. "Someone who sees value in people regardless of their appearance deserves to be rewarded, and I have a proposition for you if you're interested." Lily looked up, tears of gratitude shining in her eyes. "What kind of proposition?" Eleanor smiled. "How would you like to help me spend some more of my money? But this time, in ways that really matter." 6 months had passed since the day Eleanor Jenkins walked into Harrington's fine jewelry store in her beige cardigan and changed several lives forever. The crisp autumn evening found her standing at the entrance of the Grand Hotel, wearing the blue diamond necklace that had started it all. Her gray hair was arranged in a simple but elegant knot, and she wore a midnight blue dress that she had picked out with Lily's help. Tonight was the annual Women in Technology charity gala, and Eleanor had finally agreed to make a rare public appearance. As she hesitated at the door, Lily appeared beside her, looking transformed in a deep green evening gown. "Ready?" Lily asked with an encouraging smile. Eleanor took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together, they walked into the ballroom, which was filled with the brightest minds in the tech industry. Conversations paused briefly as people noticed the stunning blue diamond around Eleanor's neck. A few recognized her face from recent business news coverage, and whispers followed in her wake. "That's her, Eleanor Jenkins, sold her company for hundreds of millions. Heard she walked into Harrington's looking like somebody's grandma and bought half the store. They say she's been secretly funding scholarships for girls in STEM programs for decades." Eleanor ignored the whispers, making her way to a quiet corner. Over the past 6 months, she and Lily had formed an unexpected partnership. The proposition Eleanor had mentioned that day in the cafe had turned into something remarkable. "The guest list looks good," Lily said, glancing around the room. "Almost everyone confirmed." Eleanor nodded. "And the donation arrangements?" "All set. Anonymous, just as you wanted." What no one in the room knew, except for Lily, was that Eleanor had quietly transferred $10 million to the charity's foundation that morning. The donation would fund educational programs for underprivileged girls interested in technology for years to come. The check had been signed with no fanfare, no press release, and no request for recognition, just as Eleanor had handled her business for 40 years. Across the room, Eleanor spotted Mr. Reynolds from Harrington's, who had been invited as a sponsor of the event. He waved enthusiastically and made his way over. "Ms. Jenkins, wonderful to see you again," he said, bowing slightly. "And Lily, I hardly recognized you." Lily smiled. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds. How are things at the store?" Eleanor asked politely. Mr. Reynolds beamed. "Transformed, thanks to you. We've implemented a complete retraining program for all staff on how to treat every customer with equal respect and attention. He lowered his voice. Between us, sales are up 30% since word got out about your visit. Everyone wants to shop where Eleanor Jenkins shops. Eleanor laughed softly. Well, I'm glad something good came of it. What Mr. Reynolds didn't mention was how often he thought of that day, how it had changed his perspective on wealth and appearance. The lesson had been expensive for his pride, but valuable for his soul. As the evening progressed, Eleanor was finally coaxed to the podium to say a few words about women in technology. She spoke briefly, her voice quiet but clear. Success isn't about what you wear or how much you own, she told the audience. It's about seeing value where others don't, in ideas, in opportunities, and most importantly, in people. Her eyes met Lily's across the room. The young woman who had been a junior sales associate 6 months ago was now the director of Eleanor's new foundation, using her genuine warmth and ability to see beyond appearances to identify promising students who needed support. After the gala, Eleanor slipped out quietly, declining invitations to exclusive after-parties. She drove herself home in the same 10-year-old car she had for years, the blue diamond necklace tucked safely in her purse. Tomorrow, she would return to her modest house by the ocean, put on her comfortable clothes, and continue living the simple life she preferred. The jewelry she had bought that day at Harrington's remained mostly in their cases, taken out only for special occasions. But Eleanor didn't regret the purchase. The jewels had bought her something far more valuable than sparkle. They had bought her the chance to prove a point about worth and appearance, and to find a kindred spirit in Lily who understood that true value often hides in plain sight.